Mrs. Eisenreich?
Here.
Mr. Hoffman?
Here.
Mr. Hohenfeld?
Here.
Mrs. Hand?
Here.
Mr. Reitnauer?
Here.
Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Stubitz?
Here.
Mrs. Walliser?
Mrs. Walliser is out of town, so she will not be able to join this evening. All right, so welcome to the October school board meeting, everybody. This is wonderful. I think this is the most people we've had in about 5 years. So since COVID, we don't want to go back to that time, but this is a good celebration. We have a couple things that are happening this evening. We have teacher recognitions. We have New Height Award recipients. That's our opportunity to recognize staff members that go above and beyond. So we have 3 recognitions this evening for New Heights. We also have our students here. They're going to share a few words about the things that are happening within the school building. So we have parents here as well as our students. And we also have our new teachers here. So we had a welcome event before the school board meeting. It's a little bit of a meet and greet for our school board members to meet our new teachers. I'm going to put you guys on the spot, and no in particular order, but would you mind going and just introducing yourself? If you don't mind standing up. Quick background about who you are and what you're teaching. I'm going to call on you first. Thank you for doing that on the spot. You guys did a wonderful job. Phenomenal group of young teachers here with different backgrounds, eclectic backgrounds, but they have really made a difference in our program so far. From a new program that we started with Ag to our other staff that are filling in for different positions, whether it's long-term subs or permanent positions. And so they've been doing a phenomenal job of really creating a new vibrant culture for what they're doing with our students. So thank you to all of you for what you do. And thanks for being here tonight. They have to be here as part of the requirement for induction. So lucky them, they get to spend the whole night with us. So I'm going to transition and move up there, and we're going to do the New Heights Awards. The first New Heights Award is going to be for Lisa Roy. So as I mentioned earlier, the New Heights Award is an opportunity for us to recognize staff members. And so anybody can recognize a staff member through a New Heights Award. The New Heights Award, then we go through all those as an administrative team and pick 2 people each month to celebrate and essentially become employees of the month or New Heights Award winners. And so this month we have one that we had to pull from last month, Mrs. Roy, who was one of our New Heights Award winners in September. So this is why Lisa was nominated. Lisa, I know you're here somewhere. I saw you walk in. Come on up here. So this is why Lisa was nominated. Lisa goes above and beyond to be helpful to everyone in the Pupil Services Department. She is always helpful happy to help and will go the extra mile to support not only her staff, but more importantly, our students. She is kind, knowledgeable, and happy to help. A pleasure to work with! Exclamation point. And then Mandy has a few extra comments to share.
I do. Good evening, everybody. So Lisa is truly the gears that run our office. She continually is managing phones, paperwork on a daily basis. She deals with staff, parents, students, communicates via email, phone, in person, whatever is needed. She makes sure that those things happen. We truly rely on her, and she is the cornerstone of our office. And if it wouldn't be for you, I think our office would not meet deadlines and possibly not be in compliance. So we appreciate everything that you do.
So each one of our recipients gets a certificate. So congratulations with a little pin. There you go.
Thank you.
As well as a New Heights mug. So there you go. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Next up, we have 2 elementary staff members for the October Award. And the first one is Miss Jennifer Kirshner. So Mrs. Kirshner has been with us for several years now, helping in different capacities. She received 9 awards this month, so huge win. Let me read just a summary of those 9. Jennifer was nominated 9 times by staff members in the district. Jen's positivity, dedication, and constant support for both students and staff make her an irreplaceable part of our school community. No matter the situation, she's always calm, patient, and ready to lend a hand, whether it's working with students, helping her colleagues, or using her own time to create resources like sensory activities and storyboards. Jen consistently goes above and beyond. Her creativity and genuine care boosts students' confidence, and our colleagues love her for always being there with a smile and willingness to help. From stepping up in a substitute across classrooms to brightening up the staff room, Jen brings warmth and positivity wherever she goes.
Congratulations. We're gonna have to make sure she gets those because it might be going to her Camp Spark email. All right, I could just have a little something here. Jen is the best building sub we could ever ask for. She is kid-centered, friendly, patient, and incredibly hardworking. She has taken the initiative in so many different things across the elementary school, but this year decorating our faculty room in every spare moment that she had. Providing to make it more comfortable for staff. She created task boxes in our autistic support classroom. So things for the students to grab and go and do that are on their level, but focus on a lot of different needs that they have. Provide sensory tools, not just for our special needs classroom, but for our behavior support or other students that need it. And is always willing to lend a helping hand. If she's assigned to a classroom that doesn't have a duty, she's stopping in the office. Who has duty that I can cover? What do you need me to do? We have a to-do list. She's always eager to get that done in every free moment. She definitely keeps our spirits high at the elementary school, and we are so fortunate to have you on our team. Thank you for everything that you do.
Absolutely. So a final recognition for this evening, our second October recognition is Mike Miltenberger. So Mike, if you don't mind coming down. Mr. Miltenberger had 2 recognitions, so I will read both of these. Mr. Miltenberger has been a great support for not only our staff, but more importantly, our students. He always puts students first and supports them to do their best. He holds high expectations that his students rise to meet. He is an integral part to our team. Thank you, Mike. The second one, Mike has been a fantastic mentor to me in these first few weeks of my teaching career. He is always checking on me, asking me how things are going, and reassuring of me whenever I doubt myself. He is a phenomenal leader and is always willing to help me with any and all questions I have. Thank you. Mr. Miltenberger has served in the capacity of a physical education teacher. He now is physical education as well as part-time autistic teacher. So he is supporting with some of the behavior concerns in our elementary school. And he is also the rifle team coach. So wears many hats.
We are so fortunate to have Mr. Miltenberger on our team. He is one of those natural leaders among staff in general, but also has that leadership role, obviously with students, but they really are eager to please. And he has calm and patient demeanor. So the students with the behavioral difficulties are really drawn to him to start to comply when they may be escalated. So the new role that he has this year of the morning being behavior support, he gets the kids set for success, gets them starting their day off, and then he gets to go have fun in gym class and not just fun. There's standards we have to meet there, but gets to do that, but also is able to still have that opportunity to check in with students, multitask a little bit. If those students do need a break while he's teaching gym, he can still monitor them, give them a break in that atmosphere. So it's a new role that he has taken on so incredibly well. The just the progress that we've seen in the first month of school has been phenomenal, but I'm very lucky to have you on our team. So thank you so much, Mike.
And then one last recognition I'd like to provide this evening. We have our foreign exchange student. We have a foreign exchange student in high school this year that's from Italy. And she came to join us this evening to the school board meeting just to see what happens at a school board meeting. She's not going to stay the whole time, unlike our teachers. But she did. I did want to recognize her. It is Lucretia Mora. Do you mind standing? Lucretia, do you want to share some of the things that you're involved in so far that you were telling me about?
Student Board Representative report. Quinn Savage.
In the elementary school this month, the Topton Fire Company came on October 4th to talk to all the students about fire safety and what to do if a fire happens. Then they got to go outside and see the fire truck in person. On October 18th, the PTC will be having their annual event, Race for Education, where the elementary schoolers will walk up to the middle school track to run or walk. On October 31st, the elementary school will be having their annual Halloween parade, where the students can dress up in their costumes and walk with their class behind the high school marching band. The rest of their day will have Halloween parties in their classrooms and participate in Halloween-themed events. In sports, girls field hockey went 7-9-1. Their last game is tonight. In golf, they went 1-14. Girls soccer went 7-7 with their last game on Wednesday. Boys soccer is 7-7 with their last game tomorrow. Girls tennis is 5-7, and girls volleyball is 7-9 with their last game tomorrow.
Good evening, school board members, administrators, teachers, and community members. The month of October is going well so far. The Middle School Student Council has a few things to share. The Student Council Key Club raised $385 from the bake sales at the home sports games held on September 17th to 19th. This money was used for the Lehigh Valley Children's Hospital wish list donations. The Student Council also wants to thank volunteers and parents who donated baked goods. The October Spirit Week thing is Red Ribbon Week, taking place from October 28th to November 1st. That Thursday, which is Halloween, has been chosen to let students wear their Halloween costumes to school. Each day of that week has been selected to honor Red Ribbon Week, the largest drug abuse prevention campaign in the United States. BHMS will collect coins and monetary donations for Trick or Treat for UNICEF during October. Students are excited for the next middle school dance that will be held on October 18th from 7 to 9 in the MS cafeteria. The theme is neon, and the student council is thrilled to show middle schoolers the glowing decorations they have planned. The Brandywine Heights PTC will be hosting an outdoor movie night on Friday, October 11th from 7 to 9 on the MS soccer field. They will be screening a film called Little Giants. Picture Day retakes are on October 28th. At the intermediate school, 5th graders are off to camp October 9th to 11th. They will be learning outdoor living skills, archery, go on a salamander hunt, hike to the peak, use the low ropes course, go on a map quest throughout the campground, and enjoy large and small group team building games. The 5th grade camp is a wonderful experience that our graduates always cherish from their memories of being a student at Brandywine Heights. And the intermediate school students have been raising money for the Race for Education fundraiser that will be held on Friday, October 18th. Students will enjoy music and fun as they spend some time outside on the track doing as many laps as they can during the event. If the students at the ES and IS raise $15,000, they will vote for a grand prize. Thank you.
All right. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. Moving on to board of director report. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion right up.
A couple items under Board of Directors report. We have the meeting minutes from the September 9th meeting. Any corrections, adjustments that need to be made before of those meetings before you officially approve those? None heard, then those will stand as presented. We have the second reading of policies. You may note that there are two policies that have been tabled to be considered the next meeting. That is policy 207, as well as our Title IX policies. We will again, those are on the September meeting. We'll pick those up in the November meeting. Have to do a little bit more work on those policies for final approval and consideration. Item C is the first reading policies. There are four on here this evening. 3 of them are just a review. 212, reporting student progress, assessment of students, and class rank are all just a review of policies. No changes recommended there. As part of our 6-year rotation process to review policies, they came up, and again, no change on those. There is one 706 property records that does have some changes, and that's based off of the GASB accounting regulations. And Ms. Del Guerrico is going to share a little bit about those changes at a high level.
Yeah, so basically, there's 2 GASB statements, GASB 87, which had to do with leases, and GASB 96, which had to do with subscription-based information technology arrangements. So essentially, we had to update our policy to align with really the new trend, I would say, that is going on in the world. I would say, as you know, you see us, we approve a lot of, instead of just buying softwares outright, say QuickBooks, for example, that you might use. You used to buy the CD-ROM, you owned it, it was an asset. Nowadays, you buy subscriptions. Like every year, we're approving Frontline and a lot of the softwares that we as a district use. So really, GASB came out and said, you know, we need to update basically the way that we report and include things on our financial statements. Because right now, leases and agreements, we really weren't reporting. So to, I guess, have greater transparency now, we have to, any of those leases or subscriptions that are beyond the 1-year useful life, we have to include them on our financial statements. So really, we set 2 thresholds, $25,000 in total payments over the life. So we're not, you know, doing a $2,000 software over multiple years. And then we'll have to report those. So essentially, we as a district have 2 items that would really be added to our financial statements. One is an asset, and also the liability, something that we owe to the vendor. Would really, I know last year, the one was fitness equipment, from when we put the fitness equipment here at the intermediate middle school, and also the laptops, which we do a finance agreement, which essentially at the end we pay $1 and we own it. So now we'll be reporting them on our financial statements. So that's really all it was. It's more of a reporting requirement to keep up with the way, you know, business operations are trending.
ECIU.
Hi, good evening. Can we go back just a bit to class rank policy? I don't have any questions about the policy, but I remember being on the board in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, when we changed from the whole valedictorian, salutatorian, etc. class rank, numbered class rank, to this Latin honors methodology. And so it just, given the opportunity that we're renewing or re-upping the policy, to me, it sort of begs the question, perhaps it might be time for an update from the administration to give us some feedback 5 years in I know at the time why we did it, to help kids not be so competitive with each other, in some cases best friends, kids choosing to take classes to boost their GPA as opposed to taking classes that really guide them in their future career path. All sorts of reasons. There was committee work involved. The model here that's in the policy, that chart, was pure guesswork on the part of those committee members. And so really, I'm just suggesting perhaps in the next month or two, or whenever you have the opportunity, if you could report back and give us some feedback about, have we seen levels drop as a result of this? Have we seen kids still making good choices, or perhaps not making good choices about what coursework they want to take? And then these thresholds of 5%, 5%, and 10% in Summa, Magna, and Cum Laude. Are we hitting those numbers, or do we need to make some adjustments?
So as Mr. Ginge comes up, we did do some preliminary work too on our end just to make sure that things were set. So this is saying about 20% should be included. Should be at 5 at the top, 5 in the middle, and 10% at the lowest. We are at about 26.6% average of that are recognized over the last 3 years, which for me is a wonderful sign of how we can recognize students. And I know Mr. Ginge will share more into this, but we've seen a tremendous growth in terms of that anxiety and that fight and that manipulation of classes to get the best GPA with courses that they were taking to try to be that number one. That has went away. The one thing that is a little bit out of kilter is there are actually a higher percentage at that top level, the Summa Cum Laude. Right now, it was targeted originally at 5%. On average, we're about 12%. I don't think that's something we want to change, though, in terms of the GPA. And so we purposely did not come in with a GPA recommendation, because if we have, on average, about 12% that are getting a 4.35 GPA, I'd really hate to take away that opportunity from kids. They are doing a phenomenal job. And so the recommendation was to keep it where it's at. But we are seeing a little bit of an elevation compared to what we initially thought in terms of students that are being identified at that highest level.
Awesome. I don't want to interrupt the boss. I do very and off the cuff. But one of the things that I think has been a big change in my tenure over 7 years is the amount of courses that we can offer and pathways. When I first started, we only had a single computer science course, and now we have 4 computer science courses, 3 of which are Google, 2 of which are AP. And so when we have students that are taking those courses, obviously they're also then receiving higher weight, which is bringing up those GPAs. It's not ballooning them by any means, but I think over the 7 years, the number of pathways that we've now been able to establish at the secondary and high school level in what will be agriculture, what we have in computer science, even in our music programs, has really provided the kids with a lot of different opportunities to pursue things before they go into the university level, and then providing those dual enrollment opportunities that are great for our kids. They can finish almost a semester or 2 years of college by the time they're finished, and so kids are going into those dual enrollment courses most of the time, which also carry a high GPA, or not high GPA, I'm sorry, with a greater weight. And so what I'm seeing is definitely a reduction in the stress. It gets a little tricky sometimes when you're dealing with certain scholarships, because although we've adapted our policies, some universities and scholarships have not adapted theirs. So we do maintain on the back end sometimes what some of those pieces look like, just so our kids don't miss out on any opportunities. But the most forward-facing pieces that we have for our kids in the Latin honor system, I think, have been very effective. We definitely don't see that level of competition, but the amount of opportunities that's open for kids in 7 years has been far beyond what was available, I think, when I first took on the role.
Thank you so much. Never mind a month or two. Here we are.
Thank you for bringing that up that way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Appreciate the update. So, Mr. Wagman, I'll roll right into the BCIU Board of Directors report. The board met on Thursday, September 19th. The big highlight of the meeting was the recognition for the annual BCIU Outstanding Community Partner This is an award that Dr. Hackman, the executive director there, launched 10 years ago. So this is its 10th year. And the BCIU recognizes a Berks County community member, in most cases professional, that is a supporter, an advocate, champion of the BCIU and all of its efforts. This year's award recipient was Jay Worrell, president of Helping Harvest, which is the food bank, which is an organization that Brandywine has partnered with on occasion. And so Jay was recognized at the meeting and actually got quite emotional about how humbled he was by the recognition and how passionate he is about young people and students and nutrition and food. And he understands that little ones can't learn when their bellies are hungry, and moms and dads can't always provide all of that necessary nutrition. So other quick updates. Some of the administrators, I'm sure, are familiar with this, but I wasn't sure if the board members were. Pennsylvania Department of Education had a website type set up called Penn Link, and it was a two-way channel where we as a district could post jobs and things for sale and ask for information. And PDE also sent information back. That has been discontinued. In its place, there's something now called PDE Bulletin, which is a one-way system coming from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. It's their way now of distributing information, but anyone can sign up for it. So I'm sure that our administrators are all signed up and you're getting daily communications. But if board members are interested in getting access to that information flow, any one of us, teachers, staff, anybody can sign up and stay in the know about that. Just go to penlink.com and then it'll transition you to this new PDE bulletin site. One other update quickly, there's an event every year, sometimes twice a year, the BCIU hosts a Keeping Kids Safe Symposium. In years past, many of the sessions have been extremely eye-opening and compelling. This year's session on October 23rd is a morning session from 8 to 12. The topic is human trafficking awareness. So again, a little bit eye-opening. I'm not sure most of us would even recognize that that's a challenge in our community. But if you're interested in learning about the fact that it is a challenge and what's being done to prevent it and support people who are trapped in it, etc. Free, open to anybody in this room. Please reach out to the BCIU directly or work through Andrew's office to get yourself signed up. Next meeting is Thursday, October 17th, and that's all I have. Thank you.
It's interesting. One of those topics that you think is a issue here at the national level, but it's in our backyard. It's absolutely a concern.
Yeah.
Moving on to BCTC, Mr. Reitner.
BCTC met September 25th at the West Campus. A huge congratulations to the talented horticulture students who showcased their skills at the Ole Fair. Their hard work was on full display. The electrical occupation students are very busy around campus running and installing electrical lines to power the brand new TV display in the hallways. The culinary arts students every Friday are selling baked goods for anyone that's interested. And the next meeting is October 23rd at the East Campus. And one keynote I wanted to make, and Mr. Potiker showed us this on the weekly update. We have 30.4% of BCTC. We are the second highest in BCTC next to Topahawken, which I think is incredible.
Thank you. So the committee met on September 26th. In the committee report, you will see that I attached a one-page summary. They essentially went over the financial report for August and the update on the BPT program. As you know, we do not collect those, and also provided a solicitor's update on the delinquent EIT. The next meeting is scheduled for December 19th.
Thank you. COLA, Mrs. Waller, this is number you. Anything you'd like to add?
There is a summary of the notes from the COLA meeting that's in your packet and linked. Just a couple quick highlights. The Dr. Sherry Smith was the presenter from PASA. She did talk about the budget update, about the budget that was just recently passed. She spent a lot of time on the adequacy and tax equity supplement that Ms. Delguerico talked about last meeting. Two other quick notes. She did highlight the teacher and superintendent shortage. So just an interesting fact, this is nothing to do with me, just by the way, but the superintendent changeover in the last 2 years has been 35% statewide. At the teacher level, the amount of emergency permits outpaced the amount of actual permits given out at the state level. So think about that. There's more emergency non-certified permits giving out to teachers that aren't certified than there are actual teachers that are capable of teaching from the Department of Education. So those are the two interesting facts I just thought I'd share in terms of staffing shortages at the educational level. So the 9 of you, thank you. Thank you for not being one of the statistics.
Nothing to report as of right now. We will be having an executive meeting after this meeting to talk about some policies.
Thank you very much. Strategic planning and goals, Mrs. Eisenhower.
The administration has met to set their goals for the beginning of the year. That's it for that.
All right, next one, negotiations and compensation.
There is the consideration of approval for the Bahia collective bargaining agreement on tonight's agenda. And do you want me to go over the highlights, or do you want?
We'll do that when we get to
Okay,
that after.
perfect. We will talk about them when we get there.
Thank you. Building and construction committee, I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Pottinger.
Yeah, so we have a lot of things going on right now. The middle school platform stadium project is going on. Bertolette Construction is the one that's doing that. They have completed all the concrete work at this point. They started with the wall. They did the walking area in the front. They did the steps, and now they did the platform. That's all done. The next stage is to do the railing. They've already measured for the railing, so that'll get installed in a few weeks. And then the final piece is to do the grading, to have that smooth transition from the grass area now up onto the concrete platform. So that is on pace. Anticipated about 3 to 4 weeks, unfortunately, till it finally gets done. We were hoping to have it done sooner than that, but it's going to be a great project when it's done. The high school project is well underway. We have Schlau Incorporated, who's the one that's doing that project. They have poured the concrete pads for the shot put, the javelin, and the discus areas. They have put the fence in for the softball fence. They're putting the warning track in. They're now moving over to where the bleachers are. And the grass areas have all been pulled out, and they're working on starting to pour those for permanent concrete in those areas. They are moving very, very fast and very aggressively and doing a phenomenal job over at the high school. Ton of compliments about their work ethic, about how fast they're moving on the project. It's been going very seamless, and a huge kudos, if you don't mind. Mr. Molatoris has been doing a phenomenal job in general, but in terms of the projects here, has been doing an awesome job of leading the projects, managing them, talking with the contractors on a daily basis, bringing the information back and asking questions as needed to get guidance. He's been doing an amazing job. So thank you, Mr. Molatoris, for all you've been doing on these. The two more items, just a quick touch about. We also are investigating solar. We're looking to add some solar arrays over at the high school. There are two pieces that come into play with that make it more attractive financially now. There's an Inflation Reduction Act. That's a federal ability for some revenue, as well as a Solar for School grants, which is a state revenue source. And so it may make it appetizing for us to move in that direction. We've had some preliminary meetings, Mr. Molatoris, Ms. Delguerico, and I, with two firms to start having and engaging some of those conversations. Financially, what does it mean? What's the benefit for us? What's it going to look like in terms of, for lack of a better word, an eyesore? Or how do we make it use space that is otherwise not usable, so that we can create some revenue out of that? We have a follow-up meeting with the Building Construction Committee tentatively scheduled for October 21st with some next steps. We are moving fairly fast on this, primarily because of that Solar for Schools grant. That opens up the middle of October, And so we need to be able to, if we're going to be interested in this, be able to say yes, go through the application process. So there is a quick turnaround on the decision on this, but more to come on that. But the board just want to give an update. And finally, as part of the high school project, kind of going back to that, I wanted to spend a few minutes about the brick campaign we have going on at the as part of this high school project. And so I asked Ms. Connect to put up the slide here. This is on our website. We did a full blast out to our community. We had it at the homecoming. It was the kind of I call it the soft launch or the initial launch at the homecoming event. This is our brick campaign. It is done in tandem with our education foundation. The education foundation has been in place now about 2 years, and they wanted to do some partnership on this. So the idea is when we look at the high school project, when you come out the doors and you see the stadium, this is going to be the area where bricks are going to be able to be displayed. It's going to be right next to the doors, and there's an opportunity now to purchase the regular 4x8 bricks and have them lettered as such. You could purchase these 8x8s, or you can purchase the center 12x12s. The pricing is there. This project has went off very well so far. It has been a combination of individuals from the construction committee board members, individuals from the education foundation, as well as district employees. There is a cute little video that's up here of our students doing some highlights of that. We're not going to spend the 37 seconds to watch it, but if you have 37 seconds of your life and you want to watch it, go for it. And then finally at the bottom here, there's a buy a brick. There's some images of what the project's going to look like. The brick area is going to be, it's hard to see here, but it's right behind here. This is where the doors are that you come out. This is what the track is going to look like. So we have that in there. We also have some additional kind of soft launch, some additional sponsorship opportunities that allow some naming rights onto the sign. There's about 12 to 13 of those approximately 4 foot by 8 foot signs to go on the new permanent fence that we're putting around the softball. So we have at least 2 sold, probably 2 more that are going to be going up onto that area, and that's just as a soft launch rollout. So excited for that opportunity as well. But really, our main emphasis right now, and that's why this is soft, is to push the bricks. This will be open until January 1st. At January 1st will be kind of the deadline because that has to be the first wave of ordering, so we can get them engraved, get them back from the engraver company, and then here on site so they can be installed. Anything that's not engraved at the time will be installed as such, and then we can pluck them out with different waves as we go from the time moving forward. So, any questions about that?
Hi, Mr. Pottinger. Thank you for sharing that. Whoops, if you could put that back up. I'm delighted about this program. I've been an advocate of the school reaching out to the community to do this kind of initiative for many, many years. And I'm excited that in conjunction with the high school stadium builds, we had the chance to do that. Also delighted that the Education Foundation is partnering with us on that. Couple of questions. The dollar amounts, can you give us some feedback how they were established in comparison to what the our cost is? So in other words, how much of that $100 or $200 or $500 donation is cost versus sort of profit to the district? And what in particular are our financial goals? Obviously, we want to involve the community in the project. So those are all the non-financial goals, but financially, how do we know we've had a good campaign? And how often will we hear reports about how it's going and that sort of thing?
So our goal for the community is not necessarily a financial campaign goal. It's really to get buy-in so we can have advertisement. We do have a financial campaign goal, and forgive me, I'm going to speak off the cuff, so these numbers might not be exact. I was trying to pull them up real quick. The stratosphere of $100 for a 4x8, $200 for an 8x8, and then $500 for a 12x12. That was derived from working with the actual engraving company. So they do this on a daily basis. They kind of know what that threshold is. The approximate net income that we get out of that is about a 1/3 cost, 2/3 profit. So if I remember right, I think it was about $36 for, you have it in front of you, about $36 to engrave a brick. And then the rest would be profit. So
Is that it? It's not a touchscreen.
You can keep touching it though. and see.
how's it work?
Was that
I wasn't too far off. It's $22.50 is what the engraving costs are, and then the selling price is $100. We made a goal of $45,000 internally as a target for what we could possibly sell. That equates to
Look at the.
It's not a touchscreen.
oh,
No, no.
ugh,
Didn't change.
so frustrating. That equates to selling 250 4x8s, 100 8x8s, and then 16 12x12s. That's what our goal is. We figured there are 16 12x12s total. We figured those will probably sell to businesses, so those were in there, the 8x8s and the 100, or sorry, the 250 4x8s.
Okay. And how's the response been? We rolled that out electronically, right, through email,
Yeah.
and then at homecoming. So 2 weeks later, what kind of feedback are we getting?
At this point, I have to go back and look on that. I'm sorry, I don't have that readily available because it's flowing through the Ed Foundation, so I don't have direct access to that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I would just ask.
That you keep us up to date. I mean, for me, again, super thrilled about it. I'm also cognizant of the fact that this is probably the first time, at least in my tenure on the board, 14, 15 years, so a long time, that we as a district are doing a big community-wide fundraising campaign of this nature. And so we already tax our community pretty heavily compared to our peers. And we know that we're in somewhat challenging economic times. And so I'm just trying to be sensitive to how much are we asking of folks in exchange for getting your name on a cool new stadium.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all I have for building committee.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none. Should I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschildt,
Yes.
Mrs. Ham,
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mr. Wagaman,
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Thank you. Business and operation report. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion right now.
Second Sheets.
All right, good evening. Thank you, everyone. This evening for the business and operations report, we will start with the bills list, items A through D. We have bills for general fund, food service fund, construction fund, and capital reserve. I do want to take one moment to pay particular attention to the construction fund bills list. If you had a chance to review it, you're going to see that there is a check on there for $80,000. It says refund of prior year. It's to the United States Treasury, or also known as the IRS. So essentially, I know we've had conversations about this, but when we took out the 2019 series bonds, we essentially have 3 years to spend all that money. We were tax exempt when we took it out. So we actually just finished year 5. So we're 2 years past due of spending that. So when that happens, we have to turn over any interest that we have earned in years 4 and 5. So working with our financial advisors, we had to do a calculation and submit essentially a return to the IRS, and the total that we owed was $80,000. So obviously we weren't entitled to any interest, but it never feels good turning money over to the IRS. So, but that money will be spent when we do the new track and field project. So I would say by the end of year 6, we should have spent that in full. Moving on, item E.
And Ms. Delgarco, if you can just elaborate how those funds are going to be spent down in this year.
Correct. So the remainder of those funds will be spent with the track and field project as we move along there. So I would say within 1 year, but hopefully by next summer. those funds will be depleted.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? Will we be subject to another penalty therefore for year 6 or the remainder of year 5 and into year 6?
So not so much a penalty, but we will turn over any interest earned.
Okay, so is there any creative solution for us to liquidate those funds sooner so that the district doesn't lose that money? So can we consider, or have we perhaps considered prepaying some of the contractors? $80,000 would be a sweet incentive to, let's just say, the scoreboard company who we negotiated hard with, if I recall. And if we said, if we paid you upfront 80 grand, would you lower your price even more than you did before? So it could turn into a potential win for us as opposed to a loss. If nothing else, I just would encourage us to do everything possible creatively and financial planning wise, not to allow any more dollars, even 1,000 or 2,000, walk out the door. We've earned it interest wise.
So
Like a wash.
I was gonna say, technically it's not our money.
If we spent it already, we wouldn't be earning interest on it. So
If we spent it, we would have an asset in theory, or a project that's paid for. Holding the money generates income for us, but now we're giving up that income because we haven't spent fast enough. What I'm suggesting is spend faster. We have the projects outlined. I'm sure we have payment schedules with these vendors.
you don't ever want to pay a contractor for work that's not completed.
Well, okay, let's consider brainstorming something else, because you're not paying a contract for work that's not completed, but you're essentially throwing away 80 grand. That's a lot of money for our district budget.
It's not throwing it away. If we didn't have that money there, we wouldn't be earning the interest on it. If it was already spent, how would we be earning interest?
But it hasn't been spent. So we've generated income that we're now foregoing.
Yeah, so
But if we didn't,
It is
if we
ours.
didn't
It
have
absolutely is ours. We borrowed money. We paid interest to borrow that money. It's sitting in the bank, generating interest. We're doing well because interest rates have been way higher than what we're borrowing at. We borrowed at like 2%, roughly. And now we're generating interest income at like 5%. So that's excess funds into the district, which is fabulous. Having said that, there's a caveat, which says we're not really supposed to, as a district, to be able to do that. And that's why the government puts a 3-year time frame on it. So we're not following the rules in terms of, we're sort of out of compliance. And the penalty to us for being out of compliance and not spending fast enough is that we have to give back that interest revenue that we've generated on taxpayer bonds. So I understand what you're saying. It's a little bit hinky in terms of,
I don't see how it's.
oh, it's absolutely $80,000 that's going out of our bank account that could be spent on something else.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the rules in place to prevent speculation.
Well, we didn't do it on purpose, John.
No, I know we didn't do it on purpose, but I'm saying that the rules in place, the reason why we have to give that $80,000 back is to prevent speculation.
No, it's to prevent us from going out of compliance. We had 3 years to spend it. We're now in year 5 or 6, it sounds like. I'm just saying, let's not continue to be slow about it.
We're just not losing money. We're not like losing taxpayer dollars.
We absolutely are. That's income that
How
this
are we-
district budget generated that's sitting in the bank.
But after year 3, it stops becoming income, because anything we make in the next year and a half, we have to get that interest back anyway. We can't utilize that interest to buy. We still have to cut the check for whatever the interest would have been in year 5 and 6.
We're not accounting for that as income.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially we took the money out while we borrowed the money. We did not pay taxes on it because we're a tax exempt entity. So the caveat is there's that 3-year requirement, so you can spend the money within 3 years without having to pay or essentially turn over any interest. So anything you earn during those 3 years is yours to keep.
Understood.
Yeah. So essentially after year 3, they would have liked you to spend it. So anything over that you turn over, and the rationale behind that is they don't want people borrowing and then having that money sit. They borrow tax exempt and then they make a profit on it.
Exactly, which unintentionally, that's exactly what this district has done. We are out of compliance. We borrowed money. We didn't spend it fast enough for the things that we're allowed to spend it on. And as a result, we're getting penalized. That interest that we've generated on those bond funds, that borrowed money, no longer belongs to us. We have to give it to the government,
Which
right?
we-
The bank paid it, right? It's real money. The bank paid 80 grand and it was sitting in our coffers. And now we've been penalized and we have to re-release it to the government, to the IRS. So all I'm suggesting is that point in time forward, we not continue to delay and subject ourselves to further penalties if there's any option to avoid that. Maybe there aren't any, maybe we're so far out of compliance that we just have to suck it up. But I'm just suggesting you guys to think creatively. And yes, you might typically not want to prepay a construction vendor, but we're well down the path with these companies. We're in bed with them. And if at this point we don't trust them, I mean, we probably have an opportunity where we can give that money to a vendor as opposed to the IRS.
So I think your point is, let's try not to incur more interest so we don't have to give it back. And so our strategy is use all those funds up first, which is what we're doing, to pay any of the construction bills that are current. And of course, there's some that are happening because they did all that work at the high school already. So that's the angle that we're going to use those funds first to pay that now. And so that's the strategy we have right now.
Should not be any additional penalty because we will have spent that and some. There might be some. Right. Yeah, because we'll exhaust all of it this year. If it accrued any interest up until we paid for it, we'd have to pay that small amount back. I'm pretty sure I can't say that's not any, but it'll be. If you pay the credit card on day 29, you completely pay off your balance, you still have money that's due the next billing cycle because they were charging you interest on it. Right? So it's going to be the same thing. We're still going to be cutting a check next year. The only thing that I would say that, like, one way we might be able to get out of this would be the entire world shut down for a year. I feel we should have been given another year of grace outside of 3 years. Like, I think there should be something that we could put in for, some form of waiver, but it's the IRS, so they're not going to let us,
Might be worth asking. That's a creative idea, Mr. Sheets. Yeah.
Public comment about
So moving on the special ed pupil services, item F1, we're asking you to ratify a contract with this Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit for potential student placement for the 24-25 school year, and that includes tuition and related services. Item 2 is to ratify a contract with Explorations Partial Hospitalization Program for potential student placement for the 24-25 school year for tuition and services as attached. And the last one, this is to approve the revised tuition agreement with Capstone Academy, East Norristown, PA for 2024-25 school year for a district student at a cost of $97,875 as attached. And just an FYI, that tuition on the third piece particularly, essentially almost $100,000 for specialized services and placement for a student. We do what's called that Act 16 report. So we have about 2 students where essentially their cost to educate and related services is over $85,000. There's about 2 of them, and this would be one of them. And that's what really our special ed special ed subsidy comes from.
Just a really minor note. It's East North, not East Norristown.
Got it.
So just looking at it.
All right, thank you. Moving on to curriculum technology. Item 1 is to approve a 3-year agreement starting July of 25 with Nimble IT Solutions out of Wyomissing, PA to provide information technology services, including network and server support, computer consulting, computer support, programming services, and computer hardware maintenance as attached at the following rates. You'll see that the total 3-year cost is $963,500. And then the cost for any add-ons, you'll see the hourly rates. I would say we met with Nimble on and off for, I would say, the last 2 months or so. We have been, as a district, very pleased with their services. So that was really a relationship that we wanted to continue with. And just from reaching out to some other districts and our colleagues that perhaps went out to RFP for new technology services, the costs were well beyond what we're proposing this evening. So rather than go out to RFP, we decided to work with them and kind of engage on an agreement that worked for both parties. Item H, facilities maintenance. We're asking you to ratify a change order with Bertolet Construction related to the intermediate middle school viewing plaza totaling $565.02 as attached. This is essentially for miscellaneous electrical work that included disconnecting an existing light pole. So we had a tweak as the project went along, and there's a slight change in the cost of the project. Item I is to approve a proposal from Conrad Siegel to perform the 2024 ACA employer reporting services at a cost of $5,700. This is no change from the prior year, but it's also no change since we have used them. So as attached. The next one, item J, as you know, we have an interim athletic director. This is to ratify an addendum to the current agreement with STS starting July, well, when he started through the end of this fiscal year, to add an interim athletic director position to that agreement. And the next one is item K, is to approve the proposal from DeCenter Nickerson to provide contracted accounting and payroll services beginning on or around October 21st at the rates outlined below. Just a little bit of context on that. We had the 0.5 payroll position that has been unfilled for quite some time, and also the 0.5 accounting position. We had a really nice partnership for the accounting piece with the Berks County Intermediate Unit. Some changes internally there forced us to have to, mutually stop that agreement so that they could have their person back full time. So then we really needed to go out and find an accounting firm that could provide both services. We had looked at this on and off, I would say, for the last year and a half, and found some people that would do accounting services, but not many firms wanted to really do the payroll services. So we found this company out of Bethlehem, had a series of meetings with them, and we're going to start this agreement essentially after they're done their tax deadline of October 15th. We'll get them set up and move forward and see how that goes. The next one is item L, is to approve an agreement with U.S. Security to provide armed security personnel as set forth in the undermentioned specifications of the new Act 55 of 2024 as attached. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Farina, who's going to do a quick presentation on it.
Good evening, board. Good evening, community. Thank you for this opportunity to share some information about Act 55 of 2024, specifically Section 1316C. What we'll do this evening is talk a little bit about the background on this act, some of the alternative considerations that will go with this, continued funding availability to maintain compliance with Act 55, our research through this process, and then ultimately a recommendation to partner with an organization, U.S. Security and Care, who is with us this evening. So a little bit of background on this act. Signed into law in July of 2024, Governor Shapiro enacted legislation that basically said every school entity needs to have security personnel on school campus throughout the entirety of the school day. So when you look at our school district, where we have students at secondary level entering around 7 a.m., and then our elementary students leave around 4 p.m., that's the length of our school day. And Act 55 basically is legislation that says school districts must maintain compliance with this to have security in schools during the entirety of that school day. The state does allow for a 1-year waiver of this requirement should a school district not have the ability to partner with a law enforcement agency or a security company. It does also provide opportunities for school districts to have security at after-school extracurricular events, such as a concert or a sporting event. Not a requirement, but it is an option for school districts to do that. So this was passed along the governor's operating budget towards the middle of July. At that point, school districts began to look at this. As we know, Brandywine Heights is not a school district that currently has security personnel in our schools. One of the options that we looked at the onset of this was that waiver option. As you can see here, basically these are the opportunities that school districts would have. As I shared, there's not law enforcement that would be able to partner with the school district. There are not private security organizations where the school district would not be able to hire their own security personnel. One of the things with this is that SSC, the School Safety and Security Committee of Pennsylvania Commission of Crime and Delinquency, was supposed to release this waiver at around September 11th time. That waiver has not been released yet for school districts. So that was one of the options that we did look at. When we look at funding for this, because this is always one of the concerns that a school board must weigh when we receive mandates, how are we able to comply with these? One of the areas that we're able to do this is through grant funding. The Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency did release an allotment to all school districts that can utilize this for school safety measures. In Brandywine, we were allotted $124,089 to be used between July 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2026. That can be used to satisfy on any number of security measures, but specifically it can be utilized to fund Act 55 compliance. What the legislation also said is beginning in 2025, PCCD and SSSC, they are to provide an opportunity that school districts are able to be reimbursed for up to $50,000 a year for school security personnel. So as the governor mandated this service in schools, what they're also saying is they are looking at allocating state funding yearly for schools to be able to maintain compliance with that. One of the areas, though, with that $50,000 reimbursement is the Pennsylvania Commission does have until July 1st of 2025 to come up with what that recommendation, what that process is going to look like. So obviously we are quite a ways away from what that reimbursement would look like. But we do know, based off of that grant for $124,000, we would be able to maintain compliance with this act for the remainder of this school year and the entirety of the 2025-2026 school year. So once this requirement came down, we did start to look at our research, how we are able to have compliance, if that waiver would be an option. We spoke with a vast majority of the school districts in Berks County who utilize private security organizations. We then conducted interviews between members of our administrative team and some private security companies to look at which would best serve our students, best serve our community, best serve our schools. We also worked through that grant application process. We did submit the grant on September 19th for that $124,000. As of 7:06 this evening, when I stood up from my desk, we are still under review from PCCD. But that grant, again, as we've been working with PCCD over the last few years, these are dollars that they will work with you to obtain. So should there be any concerns with our grant application, it's not something that is irreversible because these are not competitive grant dollars. As we continued our research, we looked at different tiers or leveling of school security personnel. The kind of mainstays that you would see would be unarmed security, armed security, and then school police officers. Our recommendation this evening would be to move forward with a school police officer. That police officer would be someone who is Act 120 certified, which is basically the Pennsylvania certification exams to be a police officer. So, depending on, if you see a state police officer or municipal police officer, this is the same certification that those officers would go through. And what we've really focused in on our research is, as we're going to have security individuals in our school, where do we really want to see that impact with our students? Obviously, safety and security is number one, But we also want to see those individuals be able to form relationships with our students, that they see that law enforcement presence as a positive, that they see that that's someone that they can speak to, that they would see as another trusted resource, similarly that you would see with your teachers, your counselors, and administrators. And that's something in the research we've conducted in the schools that have had the best success with school police officers. That's the model that they follow. And as we were looking at partners, this was a big topic of conversation with the security partners that we were looking at. So as we come to our recommendation, it is the district's recommendation that we would pursue a contract with a security company for an Act 120 certified school police officer. And when looking at the grant dollars that we are provided, basically that $124,000 that PCCD is making available to us would cover about 99% of the cost for that school security, that school police officer for the remainder of this school year and the entirety of next school year. And those calculations are based on should we have an officer in place by November 1st. We're looking at 305 school days between November 1st and the end of this year and the entirety of 25-26, and looking at the rates that we were quoted with the organization that I will present in a minute. Should those dollars stay pretty stagnant or pretty static in years moving forward, that $50,000 reimbursement that the state is looking to make available to schools, that would then roughly fund about 75% of that yearly cost for a school police officer. So, as obviously, school safety is a major concern always, but, as we look through the current environment that we live in, we always want to make sure that everything we're doing is putting our students, our staff, and our school and our community in the safest position possible. So in looking to maintain compliance with Governor Shapiro's Act 55, we are looking at a recommendation of moving forward. The organization that we would like to move forward with is U.S. Security and Care. We do have two representatives from U.S. Security Care with us this evening, Ms. Carroll and Mr. Wagner. They are going to share a little bit of information regarding their organization with the board, answer any questions that you have. Prior to me turning it over to them, are there any questions that I can answer for the board?
How many officers are we talking about?
We are currently looking at having one officer who would rotate between all of our school buildings.
I know in the past we discussed the possibility of doing this, and one of the major setbacks, I believe, was the fact that we have a railroad that runs between the high school and the elementary and the middle intermediate school. In the case of such an event where we would require that officer to show up, how do we handle that situation where he's stuck waiting for a train while something is occurring here?
Well, in like any emergency that we would have, we would also notify all law enforcement. So this Act 120 police officer will be working under the auspices of the state police. So that would be who they would ultimately, report any kind of citation to or any type of arrest or anything like that to. So in the event of an emergency, we would also still contact 911 for other responding law enforcement. In the unfortunate case that if something were to happen and the arrival would be delayed by a train, unfortunately, that is something outside of our control. The only other option to that would be to look to fund additional fund additional security personnel.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions from the board?
I have other questions, but I'll wait until
Sure.
the rest get to present.
Sure.
Maybe they'll be answered.
Absolutely. Ms. Carroll, Mr. Wagner, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Malika Carroll. I am the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for U.S. Security Care. I'll give you a little background on the company. I'm here with Scott Wagner.
I'm the Director of Operations for Lehigh Valley and Harrisburg regions of our company, basically Central PA.
And also retired law enforcement.
From Berks County, so.
And he would be in charge of this contract should you decide to do business with us. We've been in business since 1996. We currently operate out of Pennsylvania, obviously, New Jersey, and Delaware. We have 3 locations in Pennsylvania, with our headquarters being in Blue Bell, Montgomery County. We just recently opened up an office in Philadelphia, and our next largest region is Pittsburgh. We have a variety of different clientele, but for the sake of time, we're going to focus on schools. Some of the school districts that we have up in Pittsburgh, we have a private school, Winston Thurston. We're in Morrisville School District. All of these school districts that I'm mentioning are armed in comparison to your district. Our largest district we have is Pocono Mountain, where we have 6 armed, 2 rovers. Rovers meaning patrol vehicles. And they've been with us probably the longest, probably 2016. So each year, especially recently, they've been adding and adding and adding. We have Mass Chartery Charter School in Philadelphia. They have 5 different locations around Philadelphia. And we have a variety of religious institutions who also have schools located inside of their facilities. The largest ones, Rodef Shalom in Philadelphia and Congregation Beth Or. What makes us different? What makes us different than other security companies is our training. We go over and beyond the state minimum requirements. And what does that mean? That means we have a 0-miss qualification. We want to make sure that all of our armed personnel have proper holsters and they know how to handle their weapon properly. Scott could go more into what does that 0-miss qualification mean. We also have active shooter training for all of our security guards, whether they're armed or unarmed. Each year we take them to an abandoned building and we put them under stressors. We have all of our personnel, our directors and our trainers are retired law enforcement. So they put them under certain exercises and stressors to simulate an active shooter. We are an approved vendor with Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, also known as PCCD. So what does that mean? That means that we are approved to train, not only approved to train our own guards, but we also train our competitors' personnel as well. Act 67 was passed, I believe, in 2016, 2017. Every single guard who works in a school must go through this training. It's 40 hours of training, so it's a week long. And they're trained on a variety of different subjects, ethics, violence and victimization, sex trafficking and human trafficking of youth, effects of youth trends and drugs on the school culture and environment, just to name a few. Now I'll hand it over to Scott.
Number one, our director of training is retired state police lieutenant who spent most of his career up at Hershey Police Academy. He actually helped the state develop the Act 67 training program. So we do our own training. And as Malika said, we have Pocono Mountain School District. They have their own armed security, or unarmed security rather. We train their people as well. Getting to Berks County, as briefly said, I'm a retired police officer. I had 32 years on the job, 25 plus as a chief in Western Berks, Wernersville, and then my last several years, Western Berks Regional. We cover several other school districts in Berks County that I supervise, the newest one being Boyertown. We have 1 armed and 7 unarmed there to supplement their 3 in-school SROs, armed SROs. We have Twin Valley Middle School and High School, which is probably pretty similar to your school district. It's fairly rural. Pottsgrove, it's a little bit further south. and all of these schools are armed. I'm in the process of finding somebody that I think will be a good fit for this school district. I have a couple interviews I'm doing tomorrow. When I first came on this, first was employed by the school district company. I worked at Conrad Weiser Decisions. If any of you have ever heard of that, it's an emotional support school in Robzonia. I still maintain relationships I developed with some of those kids. I've been doing this for going on 4 years. That is very important to me for several reasons. Besides the safety issue, kids are reluctant to talk to law enforcement a lot today. And it takes a little while to break down those barriers sometimes. So the officer has to go above and beyond to break down those barriers. The plus side, good officers, we have probably the best one, at least in my area, works down Twin Valley High School. Those kids give that guy so much information that has helped solve and prevent a lot of problems in that school. That's what we're looking to put here. Somebody similar to him that will interact not only with students, the staff, administrative staff, the teachers, the entire district, even down to the bus drivers. Because bus drivers actually, I did that for a while. You get good information if you listen. Because the kids don't realize you're there, honestly, when you're on the bus. They just talk. And if the school officer develops a relationship with the bus driver, he can get good intel there. That, who knows, in today's world, could prevent something. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
Yes. The officer would have authority to arrest just like a regular police officer, or how does that work?
Yes. I think the district's looking more at like issue citations under certain instances. If it became a criminal arrest, the state police would probably be called at that point. But for like
the officer here would maintain until the police got state police will get here. Then?
Yes, correct.
And he has the physical capability to do that.
Yes, he will.
Would there be any district liability in circumstances like that, Mr. Pratt?
You got to remember your liability is limited in regard to.
I'm sorry, kid.
You have to remember. I'm sorry. You have to remember your liability is limited to begin with because of the Political Subdivision Tort Claim Act, and based on the fact that these individuals are trained, and they're the liability, and based on the kind. I haven't dug deep into the agreement yet, but the liability issue will be on them most of the time anyway on those situations.
If we hired one, like you heard me say probably earlier, we have a train track that divides a high school. Would you provide the transportation for that officer to move back and forth?
I believe the district plans on doing that.
So we have an expense of a vehicle which has to be used full or available all day.
We'll be using one of the vehicles we currently have on. We're not going to purchase another one. We already have one to be able to use. Yeah.
What capabilities does an unarmed officer have versus an armed officer, which I know sounds like the guy has a gun, the other guy don't. But I mean, what's the effectiveness in that situation?
The armed officer is going to get more respect, especially from bad guys. They see an unarmed person, that's not going to deter them. There's an armed person that's visible, that's a deterrent.
So he would not be carrying a concealed weapon, he would be actually displaying that?
Yes.
Okay. In case he gets sick, what about a substitute?
We will have substitutes. I'm in the process of also interviewing for that for here and the other school districts that I mentioned. I'm going to have at least two. And I live west of Reading. I'm not that far away. And I'm qualified. Pardon?
You have a fast car. All right, I have any more questions.
So to add on to if the officer gets sick, we aren't going to incur any overtime. We're not going to charge the district for any overtime. So, for example, if that officer also is working your games, you're just going to bill straight time. However, we are asking because eventually the company would incur and eat that overtime for the district. So we're asking if we can have a backup, a few backups, and they'll be the same person, but they would be backups to offset that overtime.
Okay.
And if the officer goes on vacation, gets sick, wants to take a day off, you'll have a familiar face.
What do we do in the summertime with all our summer activities going on, Mr. Prager? Do we need somebody there at that time?
So this contract is driven that it's during the course of this regular school day. Yeah.
So anything beyond the end of the school year, the start of the school year is
At this point, we're not looking to put those services in place at this point. There is a clause that if we would need something after hours, that we can also have a guard at presence at those. Like, let's just say we had a very big sporting event or something like that.
Are we expecting to have some kind of protection for our athletic events? Basketball, baseball?
At this point, we're not looking to add that as one, it's not a requirement in the law. Two, we're not looking to add that because we typically do not have issues at those events. Now, there could be, and that's why we wanted to build that in. There could be that really big rival event when we know we're going to get a whole bunch of people to sell out crowd that we would want that extra support there, and that's why we have it built in that we could hire a person to come in for the evening for a special event. But it's not on a recurring nightly basis. It's only as needed.
Special occasion.
Correct.
Thank you.
Hi. So as I think about this, really the decision point is not whether or not to have security personnel. That's being mandated, and the funding is being provided. Thank you, Mr. Farina, for your diligent efforts reading through all the gobbledygook from the state. So to me, the decision point is what role does that individual play, and whether they should be armed or unarmed. So I would like to hear a little bit more of a business case for arming, knowing that this is a district that historically has not felt that it was necessary to have security personnel on staff at all. So to me, we're going from back in the day, we had athletic security, which we ceased hiring because there was no need, no demonstrated need other than from time to time, like Mr. Pottinger said. Fast forward a handful of years, now we're taking a big leap from nothing to armed police officer. And forgive me if I don't get the lingo right, but armed police officer. Can you help us with the business case for taking such a huge leap as opposed to being more cautioned about it?
I'll let you handle it, and then I'll say
Okay.
from a.
First of all, I think your administration did their own research into that, and that was the conclusion they came up with. From my point of view, an armed officer acts as a much larger deterrent, and yes, this is a rural school district, but Route 222 isn't very far, which is a major pipeline between Reading and Allentown, where they have had issues in their schools. That's something we have a changing society today. It isn't the way it used to be. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but it isn't. Having that deterrent is a major safety issue for your children. As I said earlier, somebody comes here, they want to do something stupid. It doesn't have to be with a weapon or anything like that. Just a parent that is losing control. We have that happen in schools all the time.
Custody issues,
Yeah, yeah, that's a big
workplace
issue.
violence.
We had a
We've seen it all.
case this past school year up in the Poconos, child custody, both parents showed up, one of them dropped the kid off. They were both there. They got into a domestic in the school. The mother went out to the car and returned with a baseball bat that she was going to use on her estranged husband. An unarmed security guard, if she was really intent on using that, isn't going to be a big deterrent to her. As soon as she saw the armed guards, she dropped the bat. She knew she was fighting a losing cause. And they didn't actually have to pull a gun or anything like that. Just the mere fact that she saw that they were armed ended the problem.
Our armed personnel is the most qualified and trained that you're going to get, as opposed to our unarmed personnel. A lot of our school districts use unarmed personnel for their games because they'll have their local PD there. But our unarmed personnel, you have to understand, we're just training them, and they don't have that career behind them of public service like my retired police officers had. So just the mere presence of an armed officer is a deterrent, as opposed to an unarmed officer. They're taught to run, hide, fight, call the police. Whereas my armed personnel, they know how to de-escalate the situation. Their presence, and last resort, they're going to take out the target. My unarmed personnel are not going to know how to do that. They're not trained for that.
Can you talk?
And if I can just add to that, you clearly outlined our status and our philosophy in the past, and I agree 100%. If this is now a requirement and we have to put funds towards having an officer in a school building, it was my strong recommendation to the board, as well as working through these interviews, that we have an armed officer for several reasons. One, it was clearly articulated. An armed officer provides that extra layer of protection and acts as a deterrent. So it puts us in a situation where we have extra safety and protection for our students and our staff by having that armed individual. An unarmed officer has the ability to have extra training, but as just clearly demonstrated and explained, an unarmed person is not able to take that extra layer of protection because they don't have those resources. And so essentially it's just another body in a building like any other person on staff. Our police response is phenomenal. We have the state police for the high school. We have a shared state police and Fleetwood police at the middle school and the elementary school. Phenomenal relationships, great response time, but this gives us someone immediately on site in case something happens. Worst case scenario, it's some kind of aggravated assault type scenario, whether it's the parent with the bat or it's a worst case scenario, an active shooting scenario. We now have someone on staff to be able to help mitigate that situation. Whereas if you don't have that extra layer of protection, I don't ever want to think that's going to happen, but it provides that extra layer of protection. And again, what I originally said, it gives us that protection for our students and our staff to have that extra layer of security. And so if we're force mandated to have an officer, for me, it makes more sense to have someone that is weaponized to be able to protect us. And that's why I recommended moving this direction.
Question I have is, who does the officer, an armed officer, take orders from in the event of a situation? So, say there's a student who is that officer is not familiar with or does not know the background behind that student, and it may not require a gun to be drawn or any of the situation. Is that something where the administration would say, let's stand down, this is what's going on, or is
The officer's primary function here is to provide safety and protection for everybody. in the event that you just discussed. That officer would defer to the professionals in this building. And if they deem something had to be done to control the kid, then the officer would do what he had to do to achieve that. But we would defer to the staff for the exact reasons you just brought up. They know the kids. It's going to be a while before whoever we put here is going to know the kids and may never know them as well as your staff does.
Are these uniformed officers or are they dressed like you?
Our uniform is, for schools, is a blue polo shirt. Or during the winter, we have, it's kind of like a sweatshirt with a zipper down about here and tampons.
It's what we call a soft
Yeah,
uniform.
soft uniform. It's not the old police style uniform.
Yeah, all the schools have gone away from that. Years ago, it was what we call a Class C, which is a police style uniform. But all the schools have gone away from that.
One question that Mr. Potty did on our handout here, I see we have the police for an armed school security personnel and then the school police officer with a different rate. What is the difference that we're looking at there?
So they can more clearly articulate those two things, but a school police officer for that less than 75 cents more allows us to have someone that is an armed officer that has the arresting capabilities and citation capabilities. If we just go with an armed security personnel, which we would use, like, let's just say the evening events, if we had that person on during the day, they do not have those capabilities. And so for a few cents more, it really made sense to recommend going with the armed police officer to help our.
Now, when we say police officer, though, I'm thinking right away, he's not one of the retired people. We're talking about somebody that has authority and jurisdiction.
So good question, because we started probing in on that as well. Yeah.
He would have to be sworn in.
Okay.
The local district magistrate would swear him in. After the petition goes through Berks County Court, Berks County system's a little bit different. Boyertown's unique. They straddle two counties. Montgomery County's much easier than Berks is. But yeah, he would have to be sworn in as an officer in the school. Yes, yes. Yeah, we're going through the same thing right now in Boyertown.
So the armed security, is that Act 235?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then the school police officer would be Act 120.
Right. And Title 67 also on top of the other two. And just to show you, this is the sweatshirt I was talking about. And it has our emblem on it.
I think I'm seeing some heavy duty equipment there, is that right?
Yeah, gun belt and handcuffs, standard.
Police style holster.
Pardon?
Do you guys carry less lethal options?
At this point, no.
All right,
does
so
that-
we're left with the choice here.
What does that mean? Does that mean like rubber bullets or something? I'm naive. Taser instead of a gun.
Use a taser.
Oh, in addition to.
Oh, in addition. So they have a choice based on that moment in time.
That's what I've been wondering. Why can't we use a taser? Like, I'm a first responder on the turnpike for 18 years, and I experience all kinds of goofy stuff on the highway every night. And I know our officers carry a gun, but I never seen them have to use it besides put a deer down. So why couldn't we shoot the taser?
A taser does not work 100% of the time. I have seen people get tased and it have absolutely no impact on them, especially somebody on drugs.
I've seen people fast enough that they managed to rip one of the contacts off.
Yeah, that, and unless both contacts make good contact, it doesn't work.
Clothing distance issue.
Yeah. Yep. A heavy, like, winter style coat, it's not going to work.
Can you talk to us some about recruiting? So, our cost is $45 or $46 an hour. Can you give us some ballpark what you're paying your folks and what that looks like on an annual basis and how you recruit folks to work in such a high risk, if you will, high need for training environment from 7 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon at whatever you pay them.
Sure. So I don't know the salaries for the officer, but I can tell you, because I'm in the meetings, the salaries are constantly changing. But we have a dedicated recruiter who works with our human resources department, and she does a mixture of passive and some other term that they use, recruiting. So they put the ads out, Scott interviews them, and then once he determines he has someone for this district, and there's a bunch of different factors that go into that. Like, we're not going to hire someone out of Philadelphia to work here, right? So they have to live within a certain radius. There are some extenuating circumstances with that. Sometimes we get someone who lives outside of the radius, but they have a connection here and they want to work here. And so once Scott interviews them and gives them the okay, then they go through backgrounds. Backgrounds can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It's federal, state, fingerprinting, county. A lot of companies don't run counties. We run counties. We run, I think, 10 years. So if they've lived in other states, we run that too. And child abuse. Child abuse could take a while too. Yeah, so that's basically all I have for recruiting. Insurance, I'm sure as you all know, has gone through the roof, especially with security and what's been going on in other states. So insurance has gone through the roof. Our insurance has almost doubled since last year. So our overhead costs are driving a lot of the pricing. But we've looked at what other security companies are charging, because it's all public record, and we are competitive. You could talk more about the salaries if you know them.
Yeah, the salary for here is going to be $28 an hour, which is competitive in the security industry in this area. And getting back to what Malika said about our hiring process, our recruiter basically screens people to make sure they have the requirements that we're looking for, Act 120, Act 235. A lot of guys that are just retiring, or I'm looking at a guy, he's been in law enforcement for about 10 years and has just recently decided it's really not for him because of the changes that have happened. So he's looking, he wants to stay involved, but not in that way. So I talk to those kind of people. We're going to have discussions, and I will probably bring at least resumes and applications. And before we actually hire somebody, people from the district will have a chance to talk to the person to make sure they're comfortable. That's not a problem.
Yeah, you'll get a
Basically,
chance
if
to
you
meet
want me to, I can narrow it down to 2, 3, and then we can go from there.
What kind of accommodations do we have to have for that person? An office? A closet?
Some place that he can keep his personal. So that's pretty
A
much it.
locker.
Yeah,
Lockers.
yeah, that would suffice.
And if I could just share, Mr. Hefner, in addition to that, over the past year, Mr. Pottinger has worked very closely with Pennsylvania State Police and Fleetwood Police to establish a law enforcement room here in this building. So as we have the roving patrols who are in and around town, if they need, a place to come catch up on paperwork, get a drink, get something to eat, we have that area established for them, and that would work for this individual as well.
Is that at the high school, did you say, Mr. Farina?
That's currently at this building.
Oh, here. Okay, thank you.
And that's another thing our officer would do, is build relationships with the state police and Fleetwood Police.
Would you have to pay prepared to eat lunch here?
Just like every other staff.
That did not come up in our contract negotiations.
No, it didn't.
So on the point in terms of building the relationships and that kind of thing, do we have job description drafted in terms of expectation of this individual? Clearly they have expectations by their first employer, but working here on site, have we drafted a job description that talks about how you navigate 3 buildings and what you prioritize and how you build relationships with our social workers and our guidance counselors?
I might address
and
that.
all that
We
kind
have
of stuff.
what's called post orders
Post orders, okay.
for every site we have. That will be done, me in conjunction with your administrators. We'll sit down and do basically what you just said. Come up with your expectations for our purpose. And that will be in writing, and our officer will be well aware of it. One of the things I do, and since this will be a new site for us, I will be here 3 times a week, checking up with the officer and also with the administration, Mr. Freeney and Jen, specifically, to make sure everything is running the way it's supposed to be. And I'm also only a phone call away.
So like,
What about school days when we go virtual? What about holidays? What about, like Christmas time off, all those things there? We don't need that person here, but do we still incur costs for that?
no,
You know?
that's in the contract.
Yeah, we're only here when the kids are here.
Okay, like even like a 2-day delay, 2-hour delay or something like that.
So snow delays, 2-hour delays, Scott would have access. Most school districts have a text message. We would be notified. You wouldn't incur.
You wouldn't expect them to start driving through the snow. We can't do it.
Correct. Holidays, half days, you just let us know what time the guard is supposed to be released. Some school districts hire the guards on the days that you don't have school. What do you call it?
In service days.
Yes, in service. Yes.
Yeah.
Some want the guards there. Most don't. So it all depends on you. To piggyback on what Scott said, post orders are a set of directions. It's a fluid document. It's going to change based on your needs. So to describe what you're saying, it's going to be in those post orders. If that officer is off, the second officer that comes in, he's able to look at those post orders and pick up where he needs to be. Set of directions.
I was just thinking in terms of our as a board, our need to make a decision without a job description from the administration helping us understand what the expectations are. I get that would be honed once that person's on board, just like any other new hire situation. But without a job description, I'm struggling a little bit trying to understand fully the role and responsibility of this individual. And in particular, I'm interested in how they will be expected to build relationships with the other support personnel in the district that are very in tune with mental health issues and safety and security. Also, internally, who will this individual report to? Like, we have a high school assistant principal / safety and security director position. How does that position integrate? Can you just talk about?
So Mr. Farina is currently the point of contact
Mhm.
to work with Scott as well as the officer. That may end up transitioning to the safety security officer that we have to designate at the state level. We have to have that. But at this point in time, Mr. Farina is going to take that lead. How that person intersects with that safety security coordinator when we're working on EOPs, emergency operation plans, or we're working on security drills, all hazard drills, fire drills. Those planning purposes we've done hand in hand with that security officer to walk through, to gain insights, to help plan, that would be that purposeful working together to do that. Additionally, professional development, we do professional development with our staff on situations. This would be a good opportunity to use that resource to help us in those times as well.
And understand this is an independent contractor agreement. You do not, you would not want to have that much say in doing that because you want to make the independent contractor agreement. You don't want them to be your employee. So they would get the idea from the district as to how they want this officer to perform, and that officer would perform pursuant to their job description, their job duties, not the district's, because they're not your employee. This is an independent contractor agreement. So they're the ones that would need to control that to make sure that we keep that independent contractor relationship.
How is that different, Mr. Pratt, than, for example, STS, when we hire an interim athletic director from STS or a substitute teacher?
They go through the same process that you're talking about here. They sit down with you, they try to outline the expectations of what you want, and then they establish that through STS, what they look for, how they recruit, and how they bring those people in.
Okay, thank you.
You want to make sure you keep the relationship separate. Okay.
Any additional questions?
I have just a few additional. These are important in terms of surveying the community, right? To me, this is a sort of a hot button issue, potentially. Have we surveyed faculty, and do we understand how folks who are interacting with kids every day and in our buildings all day long, and our employee and staff, do we know how they feel about your recommendation?
Yes, I did meet. I have a superintendent advisory committee. I did talk with that advisory committee. They were fully in support of this. They gave personal anecdotal evidence of this exact same scenario in their home district, and they were fully in support of an armed officer.
Okay, and they represent, those folks in theory, have talked to their constituents and peers in the district.
4 buildings, yes.
Excellent. Okay, good to know. And then students, and obviously we can't survey elementary students. I wouldn't imagine about an issue like this, but certainly high school kids, 14 through 18-year-olds. Do we have a sense what our high school population feels about this? In fact, we had a young person from our high school just last board meeting talk about fear and concern and that kind of thing. I'd be interested to know, not putting this individual on the spot in any way, but in general, across the high school population, do they feel reassured about this opportunity for us to provide an armed police officer in their building? Or do they feel threatened? Or do they feel like it's a waste of money? Like, I'd be interested in having some feedback from the kids.
That's not feedback that we currently garner. We do feel as the administration, it's our responsibility to look at, one, compliance with state mandates, but also providing the safest environment for our students. So we did not garner student feedback as to their thoughts on this.
Okay. So in terms of proceeding, I know you're anxious to, you're pounding that gavel, Mike. The way the agenda item is currently written, it does not match this recommendation. At least I've lost my screen, so I don't know if I can leave. Do you mind if I?
The agenda is to approve an agreement with U.S. Securities to provide armed security personnel.
Well, it says armed security, so it needs to say armed, but security personnel is different than what your recommendation is it not? I thought there was a clarification of school police officer.
So the approval is for an armed security personnel. Underneath that subsequent, it's an armed security personnel that's going to be used after hours, and a school police officer used during hours. So you're approving the agreement with U.S. Securities for an armed security personnel. That's what you're agreeing. Then there's 2 separate rates of what that's going to look like when we employ that armed security personnel individual.
Okay, is it clear to everybody else? Because to me, that's not super clear, but if it's clear to everybody else, I'll let it go.
Well, that almost has to be that way because we need it for 2 separate things. So if we want someone at a sporting event, it wouldn't be the school police officer, it would be the armed security guard.
If you want for the meeting minutes after the vote, we can clarify that to say school police officer during school regular school day and armed security personnel, parentheses, after hours. We can add that to the meeting minutes post this vote.
Okay. And are we currently out of compliance, Mr. Farina? Right. So my understanding, July 11th, and then it was effective with the beginning of the school year. So what's the consequence for it's now October 7th and we haven't implemented any security personnel yet, whether armed or unarmed?
So from my understanding, we are currently not, there's no compliance issues at this point because if this was theoretically not something that was anticipated being passed with the budget. This had been legislation that had been out there for, I want to say, at least 2 legislative cycles. And it was kind of signed in by the governor at the end of the budget cycle. So beginning with that year, schools have to look at this. So as soon as this became a reality for schools, we began the process of looking at security personnel. The grant dollars, that grant application came out in early August as a way to defray that cost. And we've been actively pursuing that since that has come out to do our due diligence from a research standpoint and from a funding standpoint. So, there's nothing out there that says that we are out of compliance because we are currently looking at that. And any school district who would be looking at a waiver, they have not had that opportunity to do so as well. So my qualified or unqualified opinion, I don't believe we have any compliance concerns at this standpoint.
Okay, so then in terms of the sense of urgency to vote on this evening, what can you articulate about what is that sense of urgency?
The sense of urgency is that the district is making a recommendation to this school board. We've done our due diligence. There's no, at this point, at least unless the board directs me to do other research, there's no other research to be done. We're putting the recommendation from the board to vote on.
One last question. We approve this tonight. When can we see a security officer here? When will he start? When will the security officer start? If we approve this tonight?
Our understanding is about 4 to 6 weeks based off of recruiting effort and background checks. Yeah, when we talked about that, that was the plan for implementation.
Do we have policy impact? Right? Don't we have a policy in place today that says no one is allowed to be armed in the district? Would we have to update that policy?
The policy doesn't include law enforcement officials in the completion of their duties.
Without looking at it, that's exactly what it says. Yeah.
Okay, so probably not policy impact, but it might make sense just to do a quick scan.
And we do have armed law enforcement in our schools weekly at the current time. So
But not employed.
No, but in the buildings with firearms. So if the concern is in the building with firearms, we do currently have that at this point. So that's where, as Mr. Sheets shared, I do believe our language is in place.
These folks that you're referencing, meaning like they come in for show and tell or?
No, as part of their patrols, oftentimes the state police or Fleetwood police will walk through the schools. As
Got
part
it.
of their
Okay.
patrols. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Could I get a roll call, please?
Oh, I had one question on some prior item. Bear with me. I can't see this one. Sorry.
No problem.
It was on the J. I think it was J, interim athletic director. I was a little bit confused by the pricing. We were led to believe that the pricing would be $325 an hour and that we would be supplied the individual through STS. This voting item now suggests that we're being charged by STS $400 some odd, which is 27.5% more than at least what my understanding was.
So the pay rate to Mr. Lapp is $325 an hour.
Correct.
The bill district rate is $414.38 because there's a 27.5 markup.
I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is that wasn't made crystal clear when there was initial discussion about it. My understanding was that our cost would be $325. Now we're being asked to approve a cost that's 27% more than that. And I'm just sharing that was not my understanding, that I feel like that probably could have been made a little bit clearer.
I'm sorry if that was a misunderstanding. 325 an hour is the rate, whether that's the increase that's going to go to SDS or it's our employee and we're going to have to pay all those FICA taxes. The increase is going to be there. The 325 an hour is the amount.
So the 400 some odd dollars, you're saying, even though it's more than obviously the 325, we're still under or within our budgeted amount for that position?
Correct. So it would actually be less because we're not paying teasers. So
So right there, that saves us 7% or whatever it is. Okay. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
33% now?
34.
Are you good, Mrs. Jim?
Yep.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitner,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
All right, superintendent report. Can I get a motion on the second, please?
So move Sheets.
Second.
Only one item under superintendent. One item under superintendent report. It is to affirm the MOU with Kutztown Area School District for our track team to use their field again. That agreement was approved last year. The plan is to use their facility again this year, depending on when the track is done. There's kind of three options. We may have to use Kutztown the entire season. We may be able to get the track done and we don't have to use their facility at all. Or probably what's going to happen is going to be somewhere in the middle where we'll start our season there. We'll end up doing all our games there because they'll be already scheduled with BCIAA. And so we'll do all the meets there, but eventually the track's going to get done and then we can bring our kids back and do all the practices at home the rest of the season. So it's probably going to be that middle ground where we'll still do all the meets there, but have practices at home. But Kutztown has been phenomenal. They're willing to work with us again. They're willing to approve the agreement to allow us to come and use their facility, which in some ways an inconvenience for them because we're kicking them out of their space or using some of their space when their athletes are there. So greatly appreciate it. Gets us out of a bind and it gets us another year to be able to do this. So want to just say thank you to Kutztown for their willingness to do that.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hohenschuld,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitner,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
All right, couple items under personnel report. Just have to write those names down quick. You'll never be able to read that. We have the 3 resignations this evening. We had the resignation of Mrs. Kleinfelter. If you want to vote no for that, that's okay. It is an awesome opportunity for Shadeen. She is a phenomenal person. She's grown in such wonderful leaps and bounds in her ability here as a professional. I love working with her, but she's going to be taking on a communications role in another school district, and so we're excited for her. Begrudgingly, but this is an awesome opportunity. So the resignation of Shadeen, we have the resignation of Mr. Riggins, and then we also have the resignation of Mr. Ostrowski, who's the current high school assistant principal, who's going to be taking on a role in another school district. So we're in the process of looking for a replacement for that role right now. We have some resignations for change of status of athletic coaches. Item B is to extend the assignment of Miss Kristen Jacobs, who is currently sitting as the long-term sub for someone that's out on a medical leave. That is going to be extended until January 14th. That's the end of the second quarter. That'll allow a little bit of a transition to happen. C1 is to ratify appointment. This is our new school nurse. We approved this person last meeting, but now we have a date. That's going to be November 11th. So we're excited to have her start. And then we have a very exciting appointment this evening. This is for Mr. Michael Pinelli. He's in the back there. Mike, do you mind standing up for me? So Mr. Pinelli is our recommended candidate for athletic director. He comes to us from originally this area. He graduated from Bristol. His mother attended Hamburg School District. His sister-in-law works in Exeter. They actually currently reside in North Carolina, but he's looking to move back up into the area. He has extensive background as athletic director, currently overseeing 36 teams, a K-12 program. He's in charge of high school, middle school, handling coach recruitments, budgeting. Interesting, he also is on a special assignment right now where he's looking to purchase 80 to 100 acres with potential donors, and they're working on that recruitment effort. So he has some of that strategic ability as well. We put him through a gauntlet of interviews. We had a round robin of interviews of 20-minute sessions, 20-minute session with students, a 20-minute session with school board, and then a 20-minute session with I'll call it athletic community, coaches, sports booster, folks like that. He resoundingly came out as the top, so we're really excited to be having Michael join us on team. So congratulations, Michael. Next up, we have the appointment 2A of Mrs. Bertowello. She is here this evening. She has joined Miss Kleinfelter. She is going to be Miss Kleinfelter's replacement. We're really excited to have her join. She has a bachelor's degree in professional writing from KU. Several different experiences working in originally hotel management. So she has that customer service, scheduling piece out to her, and also most recently in printing and marketing. And so she does a lot of the things that Shadeen already does. They were talking the same language during the interview. Most of the things I didn't understand, but they, again, the skills completely overlap. The ability of programming overlap. So we're really excited to have found Mrs. Alberta Weller. She is a parent in the school district with a kindergartner and another child that's going to be coming through the system eventually. So congratulations.
Yeah.
We also have her official start date is going to be next Monday, but she came this evening just to shadow and learn what a school board meeting is like on her own time. So thank you for joining.
Tons of fun.
We have co-curricular appointments. We have all our winter athletic positions currently filled, and that is a huge thanks to Mr. Lapp, who is our interim athletic director. He is doing a phenomenal job of being visible, of running program, filling positions. He is doing an awesome job until we get Michael on staff. We also have the approval for a stipend of $1,000 for a Brandywine Heights unified bocce ball coach position. Unified bocce ball is a sport where we partner students with special needs with regular student athletes, and they work together, and then they compete against other teams within Berks County. Eventually, there is even a state championship for that, and so an awesome opportunity for our students. Right now, the district does not have a stipend for that. The stipend comes directly from Special Olympics. That will continue. It's $1,000 stipend from Special Olympics. What we're recommending is an additional $1,000 stipend that we paid for by the school district. We have a maternity leave for a staff member from November 22nd until March 3rd. That is a staff member in the business office. We have the approval of a medical leave extension that would run. Originally, it was extended. It was supposed to end October 23rd. It's now going to be January 3rd. And that corresponds with B1 previously discussed. And then we have two additional items. Finally, that is a one-time interim pay for Mr. Farina when he served as intermediate middle school principal for 56 days from July 1 until September 19th, until Mr. Romberger started. And then finally, a adjustment of salary for Miss Emily Netterviller, who's the assistant athletic director at $43,920. That is the end of the personnel report.
Any questions, comments?
Mr. Ragman, I have a question or two on the winter coaches list. Two observations or clarifications looking for. One is the wrestling program. It appears that we've lost our women's or our girls wrestling head coach. And I looked down below. I missed this. I'm sorry. That was she resigned back in March. So can we get some clarification? We're having the head men's coach and the assistant men's coach coach, well, I'm sorry, the head men's coach now coach the girls as well. So I see a lot of, what am I trying to say? Cohesiveness there. It's also curious to me that we wouldn't have a female coach coaching the young women. Has that issue been broached? Is there any update on that?
The past practice was they practiced as a group, and the past coach was just there for meets.
Okay.
But as far as drilling and the exercise and the technique of the sport was done by the boys head coach.
Okay. So I'm thinking more in terms of the logistics. So I looked back. We do have a precedent for having all male coaches on women's teams. We don't have the reverse, I don't think, but it doesn't matter. What I'm interested in here is in a sport as intimate as wrestling, are the young women, is there any female representative that is available to them for locker room issues or other issues that from time to time happen to young teenage girls?
So I can share two comments to that. One, anecdotally, there was a situation last year where the female wrestlers actually were asking for the head coach on the list to be approved to be their coach and come to events because of the style and the technique and the knowledge that that individual had.
Helpful
there was a
to know.
desire for that person.
Okay.
Secondly, I think it's a very good comment in terms of being sensitive to that. And with Mr. Pinelli here this evening, I'll definitely be working with him to make sure between Mrs. Netterviller as the assistant AD and or our guidance counselor or trainers.
I'm thinking athletic trainers probably are
And we have a female
available.
athletic trainer
Yeah.
on staff. So
Yeah.
There's definitely supports we can ensure that our student athletes on that team in particular know that they can go to. We'll make that a priority.
Fabulous. And that's helpful info that you're sharing, that these young women really value and appreciate their the male head coach. That's fabulous to know. And not at all surprising. The other observation I have is the women's basketball program appears to have an entirely new set of coaches. There's folks on here that have the same last name. Can there be some clarification? Are these a husband-wife team?
It is. Yes, that is correct.
And are they related to athletes that they're going to be coaching?
Yes, they are. They're parents as well.
Okay. We again have plenty of precedent in this regard. I would again just put out there that from time to time, having parents as high school coaches, I'm far less concerned about it at the middle school level. And in fact, I think it makes a lot of sense at the middle school. At the high school level, I'm aware, and I'm certain if you talk to other parents who have had kids go through high school athletics, of the unique challenges that arise when parents coach their own kids as well as their kids' peers. With a new athletic director, perhaps it's an opportunity to frame up some expectations and those kinds of things. But I would just alert the administration that can, from time to time, if not handled really carefully, become a yellow flag.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
And it's definitely something to be mindful of. It was pointedly addressed during the interview process.
Okay. And again, this is not personal about any of the names on the sheet. I don't know much
your
about
points-
any of these individuals. I'm just saying in general. I mean,
your
you guys
points are
know
completely
how I sort of feel about nepotism in the district. And so this, I just noticed, may be a situation where it requires a little bit of extra care.
Any other questions, comments? Take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Hand?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Subitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Honchel?
Yes.
Mr.
Thank you. Could I get moving on to Brandywine Heights Education Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. Did I get a motion in a second? Yeah. You have to repeat it, John.
We got a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Eisenhower. Thank you. So this is a long process that started in the spring of last year, and we are happy to bring to the board a recommendation of an extension to the current collective bargaining agreement. This would be a 4-year extension. Just as some high-level talking points, it is again a 4-year extension that would run July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2029. So it's a great way to ensure that there's stability within our association and relationship with the school board. The average salary over those 4 years is 3.56%, which, considering inflation, is a very in my opinion, a very fair increase. Health insurance over the health insurance currently is 14.5. Year 1 will be 14.5, and then the subsequent year 2, 3, and 4, it will increase to 14.75 contribution from the employees. Finally, the one major shift in change of benefits is a sick day retirement option. It becomes a stratosphere of payout, whereas 50-day blocks, it goes from day 1 to 50, $30 a day. And then again, 50-day blocks, it goes 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to $70 per day in those different stratospheres. The idea behind that is to incentivize individuals to be working and not necessarily take the days off, and really ensure that we are having our employees here knowing how hard it is to get substitutes. So that is a high-level summary of the items that are part of the tentative agreement for the collective bargaining agreement. Mrs. Eisenhart, would you like to add anything as the negotiation?
No, just thank you guys for my first term negotiating. I appreciate you not being too hard on me. And I'm really glad that we could come to an agreement that was beneficial for everyone.
The association did have a vote last week, and it was approved almost unanimously, 59-1, in favor of supporting and moving forward with this agreement from the employee lens.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Quick question. Did you say it was approved 59-1?
Correct.
Does the contract cover 126 teachers?
It does. It's whoever it's the majority of whoever comes to the vote.
So every member in the collective, in the bargaining unit, is given the opportunity to vote. But in this case, only 57 of them took the opportunity to vote?
59-1.
Oh, 59. Sorry, I was thinking 56-1. 59-1. So less than half of the membership actually took the opportunity to vote.
That's not our option. We just know that it was overwhelmingly supported by those that voted.
I know it's not our option. I just find that curious.
We can't control it.
I know we can. Okay. I'm told that the value of the incremental salary increases is about $1.5 million to the district budget over the 4 years, correct? Or is that first year?
No, that's over the entire 4 years.
Over 4 years. Okay. And so over the next 4 years in our budget conversations coming up this spring, we've got to, in order to fund this, come up with another $1.5 million in available money that we can spend to fund this, correct? Do I understand correctly?
Correct.
Okay. And yeah, so do we have a strategy other than bricks where we'll only make $75 to fund this? What's high level, what's our strategy here in terms of the financial support for this?
Yeah, so essentially you'll see year 1 is the highest overall percentage increase of, of about a little over 5%. And then you'll see years 2 and 3, it's over 3%, and then it's 2.15 for an overall increase of 3.56%. Essentially, that equates to about a 1% annual tax increase, assuming all other things stay as they are. So obviously there's some other cost saving measures that we'll have to look into on how to well, one, we'd have to consider our local tax increase, but also consider an increase in funding from the state for special ed, basic ed. So that'll help offset that. And then just see if we have any other revenues or if there's areas that we can look to find a savings otherwise.
Solar.
That it's on my
Bricks and
radar.
solar,
That is-
that's our game plan, huh?
that is on my radar.
Nicole, it's basically the budget process.
Correct.
It's the same thing we go through every year. We gotta, it's not, we were gonna have that money regardless, you know. There's tax or there's pay increases every year, right? So it's gonna be the standard stuff that we're doing. You know, we're constantly trying to look for ways to tighten our belt, you know, and then also have a judicious increase in taxes to make sure that we continue to fund and we're stable and we're healthy, you know, as a, you know, not gonna say the business, but as a business, right? So it's gonna be all that same stuff going on. I mean, if you know where they hid the oil or the natural gas on the campuses, let us know. We'll be able
Right
to,
under the sinkhole.
be able to do it.
Yeah,
Probably
that's
do
what we're
about
hoping.
the sinkholes. Instead of putting concrete in all of them, what we should have been doing is just, you know,
That's right. So absolutely, I understand that will be a part of the budget process, but I also have lived through 15 budget processes, Mr. Sheets, and you have been a part of almost that many, if not more. The issue always comes up in those budget conversations that these are contractual expenses. And so once we support this agreement, there is no turning back. There's no changing our mind. We have to fund it, whether we can find the money in a pleasant way or not, right? In a creative way or not. So I'm asking proactively, in advance of the vote, what the administration's ideas and suggestions might be to reassure us all that we can afford to fully support and feel great about this in advance of the vote.
You're talking about $1.4 million. I don't necessarily feel great about having to spend that money, right? I'm happy for the employees that they're getting it, right? I'm happy for the students because they're going to have happy teachers, right? But at the end of the day, talking about a 7-figure spend should always give us a pause. I completely understand that. However, it's also, I mean, it's kind of early in the process. I think everything's going to be a framework. It's not going to be something that's going to be really, I don't think they're going to have the level of granular answers that you're looking for at this point.
Well, I don't disagree, but certainly to give them the opportunity to offer up what they have.
I got my money on that.
What's that?
He said he's sure
I'm sure the state will, by then, they're gonna be taking a lot more.
They already did, and we're banking on it, right?
Any additional questions or comments? Make a roll call, please.
Mr. Reitner,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Tibbetts,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Honchel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reichman,
Yes.
8 yeas, motion passes.
Is there any additional public comment?
I'd just like to take a minute. I did have like a 30-minute speech prepared, but.
Don't cut it short on our behalf.
No. On behalf of the association, thank you very much, guys. I know we have hard decisions to make and money can be tight at times, but I feel at the end of the day, we did get an agreement that is collectively beneficial for both sides. And as Mr. Potiger hit on earlier, we have all those emergency certs that are going into place. And if we want to continue to attract great talent like we have here in front of us, we need to be able to put the money up there. And thank you, Mrs. Eisenhart. I know we're not easy to deal with at all times. And Ms. D was fabulous in helping out on both sides. Look forward to doing it again in 4 years. So,
Can't wait.
You buy the pizza this time.
If I can just say, Mr. Donato has been a phenomenal leader for the association. He is level-headed, approaches situations from a manner of supporting the employees, but also finding resolution. It's been a wonderful opportunity to be working with him in that capacity. So, thank you, Matt. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
And Mrs. Hume, if you wanted to talk later,
address that question that you had.
About 56 versus 126.
You have a second instance.
I appreciate that. I'll see you in a minute.
Yep, go for it. Yep.
I know it was like tabled for next meeting, but it was discussed in the last one, the policy 207, I think it was. Like it was kind of discussed whether like a kid identifying as like queer would be a qualifying circumstance to tell parents. And I understand like not wanting the school to get any like penalty, I guess, or like the parents' right to know, but I think it wasn't like the potential like student being put in an unsafe situation wasn't touched on much, because some students might not like, they might identify as queer and they might not tell their parents because it would put them in an unsafe situation, or they're like still discovering themselves, so they don't want to tell anyone yet. And I also feel like it's not really, people don't really think that, like, people think that if someone identifies as like queer or like gay or trans or anything, that they have to come out to like everyone in their life, and they don't. And it's, I think sometimes school can be a safe place for kids to explore their identity before telling anybody. Like they might just tell their friends and then later tell their parents, or they might not, like I said, they might not tell their parents because it might not be safe for them too. So I feel like if it's like up to the parents to want to know that, then it could put the kid in danger. But if it is still on like a form or something, then my mom brought this up. This was not my idea, but to like send out a form to students to see if that would be safe for them, their parents to be told. That's all.
Thank you very much.